The JavaScript does a hashing, and that gets sent to the server, and that is stored there. That's up to you to think. Okay. So the point is, do not store it as plain text. That's the most important thing. Do not invent your own password security. What does that mean? Right. So we shouldn't build our own algorithms, encryption algorithm. That's not good, right? Say for example, we are all using Wi-Fi here. This computer connects to Wi-Fi. This is an example. Over the period, there are lots and lots of algorithms which have been created. Okay, different cipher text and cipher machines and all. One of the recent ones which we had was WEP protocol in wireless. If anyone is aware, when you connect to a Wi-Fi, it shows you, do you need WEP or do you need WPA2 encryption? Normally, if you go take WEP, it's very simple. It'll take just 10, 20 minutes, less 12 minutes to crack it. It's very simple. That is because it was a very simple flow in that algorithm, so that because of a repetition of a code which was used. So the point is, we should not implement our own algorithms. There are good things out there already, use it, right? Right, so that's first thing. Second thing, do not use MD5. Why is that? First question, what is MD5? That is also a hash. So SHA is a hash, MD5 is a hash. What does all this do? What is the difference? There are SHA-512, there are SHA-256, there are lots of algorithms, right? Not algorithms, hashings, right? What is the problem with MD5? We all know MD5 is a hash, it's not reversible, so nobody's gonna crack it. It's safe, very safe. Well, it's not safe. I'll tell you why. Hello. Okay, what I've done here is I have a small file called password.php. What it does is it does nothing. There's a string called swordfish. That's my password. And then I'm going to do an MD5 of it, and I'm printing it so that everyone can see. That's all I do here. Very simple thing. Okay. Now, once I run this, I can see there's a number coming. Now, what number is this? MD5 is a 32-digit long number. Okay. So the thing is, if you try to MD5 a small word called apple, or if you try to MD5 a big sentence or a big paragraph or two big pages of text entirely, both will give you same result. Not the same result, both will give you a result with the same number of digits. That's 32 digits, right? So this is normally used in integrity checks, and we'll come about to that later. So the question is, now you have an MD5 value. Can you get what is the password? How can you get the password? Any idea? Website. So are they reverse engineering something? No. It's a database. But where do we get the database from? So are they collecting all this? Right. That is the whole point. The whole point is, see, there are hundreds of thousands of these things, passwords and usernames and all leaks everywhere. Right? It's all out there. And they are all available in websites. So you can do a matching of the hash. It's all available. It's a very simple Google search. I'll show you that. So now I copy it. I paste and search in Google. And then when the result comes, it says swordfish. It's very simple. That's the easiest way. The next way is there are, as Siju said, there are websites out there. So how do they do it? It's called rainbow table track. So think about it. I am collecting all those usernames and passwords. I have a big database. You enter it. I search it here. An interesting example is there was a website which says, is your email hacked? Enter your email ID and we will let you know. Would you do it? How safe is it? You're only giving your email ID. There's no problem, right? Is it safe? You're not giving your password. There are lots of such websites. Think about it. That's the second one to think about it, right? Okay. So that is the problem with MD5. So we are doing a reverse search on the existing number of existing MD5 hashes, and then we pull out the real password. So don't use MD5. Okay. So I cannot use SHA. I cannot use MD5. So what can I use? We'll come to that. This is another problem. What is a salt? Do you implement salt? We deal with passwords because passwords are the most important thing in any website, right? What is a salt? Say, for example, let's say there's a scenario like this. I have a password and you're hashing it and storing it in a database. That's scenario number one. Scenario two, I have a password and then I have a random number, and this random number is mixed with the password, and that is hashed and saved. That's more secure, right? And that is this condition. See, the problem is the salt which we use here, that's the same salt for all the users. That's not good, because if you lose a salt, everything is gone. There's no security, right? So how should you be actually implementing this? You should have a random salt for every password, and the salt and the password should be saved, right? So what do we do? Right. One of them is the random salt. Random salt we discussed, so that we shouldn't have one single salt for everything. bcrypt. What is bcrypt? Bcrypt is also one of the best one of the best hashing stuff which you could use for your password hashing. Bcrypt. The problem is it is a bit slow. See, the problem with security is there's always a compromise. I always say this. There's always a compromise between your security part and your usability part. You want a usability, you might have to compromise a little bit of security, and vice versa as well. So it's really a question of the stakeholder to decide what should happen. Should you do it or should you not? Okay. But bcrypt is very good. There are lots of options for bcrypt again, which can help you prevent brute force and all. We'll talk about that later. Slow hashing algorithm. This is also somewhat related with bcrypt. See, what happens? We'll cover this in brute force. Right. So what is a brute force? A brute force is when you have a target system and then you are sending hundreds of thousands of requests again and again and again into the system, and that is a brute force. So why do you send all those requests? Because you have a payload. Now what is a payload? A payload is like you saw earlier a text file with lots of strings. That strings could be your passwords, your usernames. It could be existing files in your servers. It could be anything. So brute force is you are sending hundreds of requests again and again and again. So the problem is with the current computing power which we have now, you can have distributed attacks and lots of stuff. So brute force could be a very big problem. Now how do you do it? You should have to limit the number of requests. Now how do you limit the number of requests as a developer? Is it from the code? Is it from the server side? Well, you can do anything actually. So that's really up to you how to do it. But limiting the number of requests is the first way to reduce a brute force. Another way is you could have an intrusion detection system. You could have something like a snot or some sort of an intrusion detection system which will sense every time you get lots and lots of requests. It will sense that, okay, there is a brute force happening here, so you should be careful, and that will be blocked. So the IDS will take care of it. Third one is there are cloud solutions available. If you know about security as a service, that is one of the important things now. So instead of giving your site DNS directly to the server, you can give it to a middle security as a service provider like Cloudflare or Incapsule or something, and they will redirect it back to the server. So they will take care of all this brute force and all those attacks that comes, and they'll stop it right from there. Okay. And the easiest way, which all our developers usually do to stop a brute force, is implement a CAPTCHA. Very simple. Say, for example, you have a login form, you have a register form, say, for example, or a contact us form. What would happen if I send 10,000 requests over there? To block it, you give a captcha. Now the question is, how safe is your captcha? Can captcha be broken? What do you think? Captcha is not supposed to be broken, but do you know? Can captcha be broken? Is it safe? Any thoughts?
Can be broken. Like if we have software, the application that can actually detect what's there, that picture.
Right.
It can easily the application can write for.
Right. But again, it depends on what sort of captcha it is, the complexity, and that is why we have different captchas, right? Right. So say for example you have a weak captcha, that is a problem because a weak captcha can be broken. How? We'll show you how. Just pay attention here. Okay. Right. So what we have done here is there's a small file here. It's called 11.jpg. That's a captcha. That's a captcha from one of the websites. Okay. And then there's a small wrapper script which we have written, a captcha break.sh. So what I'm going to do now is I will run this captcha.breaker script, and I've configured in such a way that the first parameter will be my captcha to be broken, and second could be anything. Okay. So this is the output file 1. I'm giving the name as 1. Okay. Now what will happen? I run this, and yes, what has happened? There's a 1.txt which shows up over there. Now what is this 1.txt? If you open it, it says 99b22. So I now have the value with me. So your captcha is broken. So that's one example. That's I have already saved it. Okay. Now, say for example, if we need to try this on a actual captcha. So this is an actual captcha. This is a GIF image. This is not a JPEG or a PNG. It's a GIF image. So I'm saving this again in my, where did I save it? Desktop. Right. So now I have got my temp 0.gif over there. So I'm going to run the same stuff again, but with a slight difference. The difference being my input file is now the right. Now my input file is the GIF which I downloaded. Right. So what happened? There's again a 1.txt over there. So that shows 9K00, which is absolutely right. So now your captcha is broken. So what does that mean? That means we could be susceptible to injections. So we need a good captcha, a very good captcha, or it's like of no use implementing this. It's very simple, right? So what is a good captcha? Try a reCAPTCHA to start with. That's a very good captcha. Okay. But say being said that there are paid tools already available like Romola or something, which you can pay and then break even the reCAPTCHAs. So there are new captchas coming out now, different versions of captcha. In fact, last week we saw another captcha where it's not a captcha at all. It's a game. It's an HTML5 game. So you want to register for something, play the game. It just take 10 seconds, and then that's it. You know the application knows that you are human. It's like a very interesting thing. Okay. Injection. So we all know about this part already. Always we all cover in all the discussions. Injections. So what is injection? Injection is when some input comes into your system and that breaks the system. That is injection. So how does it come in? Well, it could come in through anywhere. It could come in through your URLs, get, post. It could come in through the headers. It could come in through your cookie. It could be your referral fields. Do you have a mobile version of your website? You are taking the referral field and based on it, you are redirecting it. Then you're susceptible. Your referral fields are susceptible. So the whole point is, based on what input comes in, this could be an SQL injection, it could be an XSS, an XPath, an LDAP, an IMAP, command injection, HTML injection, OS injection. There are lots of XML injection, different injections, but they all are based on the very same principle that due to some reason you didn't validate your data properly. So the golden rule, there's only one golden rule, and this will prevent a lot of exploits which could happen on your website. And the golden rule is, never trust the user data. Always validate your user data. For what? Like he said, validate it for your type, your size, your count. Which means you should always strong type it and do a proper validation. It could be based on your regex. It could be based on third-party libraries. Well, that's up to you, but the point is validate it, right? There's something interesting which we should discuss here called buffer overflows. We all know about buffer overflows. The only reason for buffer overflow almost always is because you take an input which is not validated for the size. Say, for example, you have a 10-digit long input. You are sending a 40,000 long number. What will happen? It will break. There's a small section in Wikipedia called segmentation fault. The small code there, you can try it yourself. It's a very simple thing. So as long as you are validating properly, you are covering a lot of you're safe a lot of in a lot of way. Okay. Second thing is sanitize. So this is mainly for XSS. Sanitize is absolutely important. Sanitization is, you should encode and sanitize. There are lots of functions available in all your be it PHP, be it Java, be it .NET. It's all available everywhere. Okay. If it's coding as an XSS clean function, every framework and library framework has all these things. Right. CSRF. So what is a CSRF? CSRF is, say for example, what would happen if I were to access a link directly and do some action over there. For example, he has a bank account. I know that he has logged in from his bank account sometime, and chances are his cookies are still there. So what will I do? I'll send him an email saying, hi, this is how it is, etc., etc. And then there will be one small piece, oops, like this. So what is this? This is an image tag where I have added another piece of source to another place. Okay, I've written something like boat over there. So the point is, he sees that, he clicks it, and then what happens? So you're actually tricking your browser now, because once you click this, without even you knowing it, actually, this can happen. This will send a request to your bank, and because you're sending a request to the bank, the browser knows it's a genuine request from your client side. Your browser cookies will also be sent along with it, because it's genuine. Because the cookies are there, the server will think it's you who's accessing it. Then everything will be done. All the actions will be performed. In the worst case is, you cannot even not prove that it's not you, because it happened from your side, from your client browser, in the same way as you would normally do. Right? You wouldn't know it. It could happen when you click on links anywhere. One click is enough to do all this. The question is, how do you block all this? Not there. Okay. How do you block all this? To block it, it's very simple. There are two ways. The easiest way is to include a referrer field check. But that's not very safe, because you can always tamper with the data that goes there and you can change it. So what do you mean by validate by means of a referrer field? Say for example, I'm saying only those requests which comes to me from this page should do this action. So when he clicks on that link, I know that he's not coming from this page, he's coming from some other page. How do I know it? Because the header has a field called referrer, and that referrer is different, right? But the problem is, you can always modify it. It's very simple. You can capture the data before it is sent, modify it, and then send it. So that is why we always have, in most of the frameworks, something called as a CSRF token, if you have seen it. So what a CSRF token does is something like a captcha. It's very same. What does the captcha do? Captcha has some value there at the server side, stored in the session. You're sending it something from here, they are being compared. It is the same. If it's the same, then something happens. The same concept applies here as well. You have a value there in your server side which is stored in the session, and server side, and then you have some value here that is sent compared, and if it's true, then the action happens. Go check about CSRF token. That's something interesting you should take a look at. Okay. And now we'll have some general things to take care of. General things like, what if you have to validate some data? You can validate the checksums. Okay. This we discussed earlier. You have a dynamic thing happening. If you have a dynamic thing happening, make sure any input which goes into that dynamic function or dynamic thing which happens is validated. Say for example, if you have a loop counter which is visible outside, I can change from 10 to 10,000. Your server will start running 10,000 times and it will eventually crash down. That's a denial of service attack. Okay, or you can start creating as many number of objects based on the input which is provided. Okay, so those dynamic things has to be validated. We discussed this. Okay. Now we all know functions keep libraries keep updating. New versions come, new patches come, and every time this happens, there are lots of functions which gets deprecated. There are lots of security new features also added, saying that okay, this function had that problem, now we have fixed it, so now you should be using this version and not the older version. So what you should be careful about is make sure you are not using any vulnerable functions. Say for example, all those print functions which we have in the C++ which we know, they're all, lots of them are like vulnerable functions. A lot of big viruses which happened earlier was based on all these things. Require authentication before file upload. Say you have a file upload functionality which is being written over there, and what would you do? Would you give anonymous access to everyone to upload a file? Well, it's possible. It will just increase the server space, right? Not always. There are different ways of exploiting based on file uploads. So what should you do? Unless it's absolutely necessary, don't give access to anonymous persons for a file upload. Second thing, when you're uploading a file, make sure it's the right file. How would you make sure? Well, one category of people would go one step and make sure you are uploading a .jpeg file or .png file. But I can always rename something to a .png file. So you're not just checking the extension, you could also go one step more and check if it's actually an image file. How would you do that? There are functions available. Go take a look at some of those functions. It will run those functions, and if it's not an image, it will return back a false. So that will add another layer of security. It's all validations. It's all validations everywhere. Never send the absolute path to the user. Now, what is an absolute path? When I say absolute path, it means the exact path of your server /var/w/www/ the entire thing. Why? Because once I know that, I know what your code is. Now there are chances that you might be building the best secure code in the world, but that doesn't mean your server is always secure. That's being maintained by a third party. There could be problems in your server, right? So these never give out information about your websites. That's called fingerprinting. We'll start fingerprinting. They will start fingerprinting on this, and then they'll start doing all those things, right? So set the right permissions. What is the right permission? Every file has a permission. Are you allowed to read from it? Are you allowed to write on it, execute it? So all those permissions should be properly set based on the world readable. Is it user readable? Is it group readable? CH mode. Go check for the CH mode. There's a whole bunch of section to read about it. Okay. Don't post exact code info. This is something everybody will be doing. Hi, I have a problem. This is my problem. This is my piece of code. How do I fix it? Then someone will come in, okay, this is the answer. Well, thank you so much, sir. Finished. It doesn't end there. It's only the beginning. What people do is they go to Stack Overflow, they go to all these forums and start searching for all these things. And now I know, aha, now that site has this password. That site has that thing, that version of the file. This is the code. This is what it is as input. This is the cookie format. This is this everything practically available there. You're like giving out information, everything. So the question is, so what? Shouldn't I do anything on Stack Overflow? That is up to your discretion. But there's always a security risk associated with giving out your code and included details about the website, right? Strongly typed variables, we discussed this, and parameterized queries, like if you know secure SQL injections, use ORMs and parameterized queries. Don't do the right exact MySQL connect and write the query exactly there, and validate everything. Right? Remove all unwanted content. Now, what do you mean by unwanted content? Well, I'm uploading everything to the server. It's all wanted. There is no unwanted thing in there. What happens is there might be a file, unwanted file in my machine sometime. Not sure though. See, look at this file, hello.txt and it's small tilde. Is that really a wanted file? It's not a wanted file, right? However, when I check the front end, do I see it? It doesn't show up there. Why is that? It's strange. Am I looking at the wrong location? No. It's the same location, right? It's an unwanted file. Why? Think about that too. There are lots of files, such files, copy of copy, backup files, archived files, tilde files. They are all available out there. You open something for writing onto a file on IDE, and you don't close it, you make some changes, then a temporary file, a swap file is created. Open multiple versions in the same Vim editor, a swap file is created. What happens to all this? You have a third-party library which is included. There are sample files out there. Some of the important problems which happened to many websites is because they included third-party libraries. You never know what is there in it. For example, 2 weeks, 2 months, last coffee at DBG, we discussed a problem about PHP website. There was a malicious code detected in PHP website because a third-party library, a third-party JavaScript was included in it, right? So when you include files, check are there unwanted files in it. If so, remove it. Unwanted HTTP methods, remove it. Not remove it, block it. How do you access your website? You access it by means of a GET or by means of a POST. But that's not just it. There are other methods. There are lots of other methods. There is a head. There is a there is a Jeff. There is a put, post, delete. There are lots and lots of methods which even we don't know about. So the point is there is trace. Only allow those methods which are absolutely necessary and block everything else. Avoid sensitive data in the cookies. When you say cookies, we already discussed about it. What is sensitive data? What is a cookie? It's a text file. Why do you need it? Because HTTP is stateless and it cannot remember people. So you send the data to the server. It could be for tracking people. It could be for personalization. But the point is, what are you sending in the cookie? How do you track him? Are you keeping his credit card information in there? Because it's very easy. I don't need a database. It's very simple, right? Or are you keeping any privacy related stuff in there? If so, that shouldn't happen, right? So this is something which I wanted to introduce to you. I'm not sure you are aware of this. There's an organization called OWASP, which is completely dedicated for security. It's a open source organization. Now what they have done is, because there are lots of problems here, they have come up with a library. Now what this library does is, it's an API which you can call and it will do all the security validations for you. So that makes your life a lot easier. So these are all the issues which we face. All the developers have lots of problems. They need to take care of all this. These are the most important threats which we have right now. You have injections, you have XSS problems, broken authentication problems, and all those most important dreaded top 10 OWASP risk, security risk as of now. And the best way to go about saving it is by using this thing called the Enterprise API. It has all those functions which you can already call. Oops, sorry. These are the functions which you can call, and that will do all the validations for you in backend. This is available for Java, for PHP, for .NET, for everything. Okay, and these are some of the libraries. These are all the functions which you can call for this. So you might want to really take a look at this. It will really help you in your development. Okay, so that's pretty much it from this session. So yep, thanks. So we have one more session from Reja about continuous deployment, about secure deployment. Hello. Hello.
Okay, this will be a quick session or security deployment. Okay, actually, what deployment means? Okay, so this.
What is deployment? Deployment is nothing. You are taking your files, everything what you have here, and then deploying it somewhere. Deploying it somewhere means you're moving it somewhere. Where it could be a production system, it could be your staging service, it could be anywhere. So you have a server, you're taking some files and putting it there, and that files could include your database, your code, your images, your everything which the site needs.
Okay, whatever it is, I just put it on the server or like production or staging. Is that what deployment means? Yeah. Okay. What are the means of deployment you use?
FTP. What are the different ways in which you can usually do a deployment? FTP is one of the most important, most common ways which we use, but we'll see how secure it is.
Do you think is that secure enough? You know that FTP passes everything in file username and password in clear text format. Just like this, you can see the username, password here. If you sniff the packets sent over the FTP protocol. Okay. Next, just when we look into the FTP clients, like FileZilla save the passwords in clear text format too. It saves uh, FileZilla.xml, recent servers.xml, and site managers.xml. I'll show you. Here it is. The FileZilla.xml shows the credentials of last login. Now I log in as anonymous, so now password is shown here. Otherwise, the password is will be printed here.
Anybody can actually get the passwords
Password.
if you're using an FTP client like FileZilla.
Okay. Just think it in another way. If it's just like a malware collect this filezilla.xml or the recent server.xml or site manager.xml. There are some malwares which collect these files and harvest the passwords, credentials. Just so the attacker will get the full access, FTP access to your servers. If you use clients like FileZilla or anything, it will be.
Then they can go about actually changing the details in the websites, put in malwares in the websites, attack the users and all, right?
Okay. Another one, the fake API. It's a Trojan. It's just download and install a packet sniffer in the system, and it listen to the port 21. The port 21 is the default port for FTP, and it will listen for port 21 and send all user credentials to the third party. Is that good? Okay. Anonymous FTP. This is what about the server configuration?
This could be something really interesting. You should really see the demo of this.
Okay, I'll just show the how can we connect to a server as an anonymous.
How do you configure your FTP servers? Is your configurations right? Is it proper, or can someone else get into those systems?
Okay, I'm going to connect to the FreeBSD FTP server. It's allow anonymous connection, so that I can connect to it. If our server is allowing anonymous connection, we can connect like this. Okay.
You're actually connecting here to the FreeBSD FTP servers.
Now I'm I mean FreeBSD FTP client.
You're
Okay.
already logged in.
ls. Okay, now there is a folder named pub. Okay, I'm going getting into pub. Okay, now another folder named pbsd. I'm going to get in. Okay, now I can access full files here. Full file list.
So if you are not properly configuring, this is actually something they allow actually on purpose. But the point is, if you're not properly configuring it, people can come and change the systems which you have. They can put in their own files, their own new things. You wouldn't even know about it. Configurations of the servers are like really important.
Okay, next. And then how will we secure the FTP protocol? It's just what FTPS. FTPS is FTP over SSL. Just like HTTPS.
So FTP is not safe, you know. So what is the other option? FTPS, right?
It's two type mainly implicit and SSL and explicit SSL.
Implicit is actually where when see every connection what it does is client talks to the server. So in implicit when client tries to make a connection to the server, by default it will go through the SSL channel. But that's not the case with explicit. That's where you actually explicit have to say, okay, you need to use the SSL connection here. Okay, so that's like two different variations, but it's all connecting through SSLs.
Then SFTP. SFTP completely another protocol. It's an sub protocol of SSH, and it uses the port 22.
There's always a misunderstanding that SFTP is related with FTP, normal FTP. No, that's different. SFTP is completely different. So
SSH or file transfer over SSH. Yep. Then next one, rsync. Normally when we use FTP, we will send all the files when we deploy. But in case of rsync, it will send only the change or the deltas. Okay.
So whatever change has happened, only those changes will be sent to the server side. Advantage, there is less network congestion. There is less bandwidth usage. So rsync is kind of very good. The problem is rsync is not safe. Why? Because data is not encrypted. So whatever protocol you use, if it's not SSL related, it does not have SSL in it, it's not secure. So rsync has an option called rsync over SSH where the data is actually encrypted and is safe. So you can use it. This is how you should use it, and that will show you how it can be done. So yeah.
Okay.
Right. So now we have a folder called test. We don't have a folder. Rsync is not. It's an. No, that's because there's a typo which
No.
is on
Is it
SY.
okay?
No, uh, this should be a SRSYNC. That's my mistake.
Okay. Okay. Let's.
RSYNC.
Okay, it's just simple as that.
Nothing failed. No, the file is
The file not
okay,
found.
the file is
It's
not
not
there.
found.
All right. The point is, it's just one single command which you can run and it get transferred over there. It's like very simple. Between machines, between servers, it's all possible. And if it's here, next, okay, you can create a file and we'll show you how you do it. It's done. So what has happened? From the home folder, the text file was sent to the desktop. This is within my machine, but you can do it within the servers, from your client to the server. It's all the same stuff. Now next, we are going to do an rsync by SSH.
Okay.
So what we'll do here is, we will SSH to the same machine. So I'm copying it from my machine to my own machine over SSH. Okay, I'm getting an SSH again and getting inside here. You can give another machine, it's possible. Just for demonstration purpose, we are giving you the same machine, that's all. The advantage here is that SSH is enabled and data gets transferred in a secure way. Right, so now this asks for to save the your SSH key when you're trying to SSH. See, save password. You always need to have a safe password.
Okay.
Sometimes it can be broken too. Right. So yeah, so now the data was transferred to the machine by means of an SSH. This is secure transfer. This is one of the best ways you can adopt in your system if you need to do a deployment. This is very secure and doesn't use much bandwidth as well.
Okay, then best practices. As said, use SSL connection, secure connection, and you configure the server properly. Least privilege. That one you have to configure the server like that. We only provide the required access.
Right. So, are you trying to deploy it by means of a user who has all the privileges, by means of an admin, by means of a root, or by means of another user with a lesser privilege? Give only as much privileges to the user as required as it's necessary, right?
And provide with the correct access control. Who can access the file, which folder, like that.
And unwanted files, which we have already discussed earlier.
Yeah. Remove unwanted files.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
So yeah, that's pretty much it. That should wind up today's session.
So that's all about this month's coffee DBG. Okay. So any other questions? They are escaping without answering your questions. No questions?
Right. So if we have any questions.
It work on the remotely, or it can work with the connected PCs. Like if I'm the last one, FTP. The FTP server that you told us that securing our files, it can be done remotely, or
Do you have an FTP server installed in your machine?
yes, sir.
Then yes.
Okay.
So if you have this network, you have an FTP server in your machine laptop right now. And if your FTP server is configured in such a way to allow the anonymous login, yes, I can log in. I can log in, I can put a folder there, I can do anything you want there. Tomorrow you come there and I can log in.
But this thing works with TCP also.
There's something telnet which you know.
Yes, sir.
Yes, that's there. But we're not covering it here. That's another part. But practically, yes, you can telnet to any systems. But most of the systems block telnet around. Now it's not. Yes. And to answer the question, yes.
I have one question. When we go to the website,
To answer your question, not exactly. It is consuming your bandwidth. Yes, it is consuming your bandwidth. Is it intrusion? First of all, the ads are put in there by these owners who make the website. So there's no intrusion in it. Secondly, most of the websites, when you start to access it, you by default agree to the terms of conditions. So again, legally, that's not intrusion because you're agreeing to it knowingly or unknowingly, right? So there is no intrusion in there. However, there was an issue sometime before where it could be called an intrusion. See, what happened is there are lots. The way I create a website and I want to put an ad in the website, what do? I don't go directly to the customers. I go to Google. Now, Google has a setup where every customer who want to put an ad will come to them. So, like Google, there are different other ad agencies as well. So, one of those agencies was hacked, and because that agency was hacked, all the other websites were indirectly hacked because this code came in all those websites. So in that case, yes, you can call it an intrusion, right? Any other questions? Very good question. This question should be asked to the people who implement it in the Facebook. We don't know how they save it over there. No. But how they transmit it, yes, through SSL. So transmission is safe. If you are using the HTTP, by default, if you use the HTTP version of the Facebook, that will be redirected to an HTTPS version, but not always on all websites. Certain websites that doesn't happen. So you have an HTTPS version, but people always come to HTTP version and start using it. But they'll have a version saying, okay, we are HTTPS certified and we are secure, we are trusty and all those things. But that's not actually the case. But how they save it, we don't know. They are confidential details. We did have a question. We did have a question like this on last coffee at DBG about why the name Jenkins, and I did give you a URL about why it was. Any other questions on web application security and and secure deployment, secure coding? If we can know the answer, we will. Otherwise, we'll search and find the answer, and then we'll let you know.
How do we secure user data and password? How do we
There are two parts of the question, two answers for the question. First thing, say for example, you have a website which is accepting the credit card and password, credit card details. Now, are you actually accepting it, or are you using a third party? Because if you're using a third party, you don't have to do anything actually. They'll take care of it. You just have to redirect it there. However, if you're not doing that, if you're actually storing it in your website, okay, in that case, your website needs to be PCI compliant. Now, for PCI compliant, there's a lot of things which has to be done, and that is a big list. So yes, I should probably redirect you to how to be PCI compliant. But yes, you shouldn't store the private all those confidential details in your website as such. There are lots of conditions which they suggest. PCI, yeah, that's Visa, Mastercard. Visa brought it. Yeah, and then that became a sort of a standard. I would have to look for that, but I'll definitely get you the answer, the entire list. Yes. PCI compliance. Any other questions? Right. The question he asked is, in his website, he uses jQuery. Now you can get jQuery in two ways. You can either download it and install it in your computer, not computer, in your server, or you can get it from a CDN, a third part, somewhere hosted online where you can get it. Which is secure and why? First of all, where are you downloading this version of jQuery from? That is the first question. Because the PHP MyAdmin, which was downloaded from SourceForge, was backdoored for a long time, and lots of people were using it, even they without knowing it. So, are you downloading it from the right place? That is the first question. If so, then that it should be secure, unless the people who actually made the jQuery has put in something else over there. Second thing, downloading from here and keeping it or using it the URL, it doesn't really make much of a difference, but performance wise, yes, a lot of difference. Now, but our question is based on security side. When you download the jQuery, the case with jQuery is it has lots of sample files and examples and all in it, right? The problem with sample files is performance-wise, yes, it again creates lots of unwanted files in it, so it becomes slow when you're loading it. But other than that, sample files could be a problem. There was an issue. I can give you the exact issue after this, where you could do a path traversal and go to. See, there was a sample file in an IIS, something that with the .NET IIS version 4 or something. What happened in it was one of the files in it, there was a vulnerability, and some people could get in there by means of path traversal. Now, when you say path traversal, it means dot/. You put it like that, and you go to the required path, and then you can execute some commands and all. So that part of the sample code might not always be secure code. It is a sample code. So when you're doing such stuff, all those unwanted files should be removed. Then a lot of security problems will be removed. Thirdly, you say jQuery. jQuery should be fine, but what if it's a another library? Chances are that library will be including another library. Now, how do you know that the third library which you're including is safe or not? This might seem a very simple problem, but there was some time ago there was a problem where because of another library was included, this site was shown as malicious. This is the same which happened to PHP.NET website as well, because of a third-party include. Right. So yes, if that answers the question. But if you want to know performance-wise, I would really redirect you to Shiraz. Shiraz should be the right person to answer this.
Yeah, using CDN will be a better option considering performance-wise. When it comes to security, then I'm not sure whether we have problems with. I usually use Google CDNs or directly download file from jQuery website and include in my site.
Yeah, CDNs should be safe as long as it's from the right. It's the authentic library. So, any more questions? Happy to go? Happy the discussion is over? Okay. So yes, thank you so much. It was all great having you all here.
Also, one more thing, Coffee DBG happens every month, first Wednesday, so you can feel free to walk in also. Whoever had attended Coffee DBG, that is, even if you do not have registration, you can feel free to walk in. Book your time.